Welcome to the Carriker Chronicles, the People Show. Check the Pulse of Husker Nation, brought to you by Nebraska Spine Hospital. Today I'm joined by Larry the Cable Guy. How you doing, my friend?
Well, it's always good to be on the daggum Chronicles, I'll tell you that, Mike. The Carriker Chronicles.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you taking the time. It's always good to have you. Now, as I'm sure most people know who will hear this interview, you're a big-time Nebraska fan. You grew up in Pawnee City on a hog farm. Later on, you lived during high school, you lived in Florida for a bit. What was it like growing up, small town, on a hog farm there in the state of Nebraska, being a young one then?
Well, it was the greatest childhood of all time. You know, I lived across from the sale barn. Pawnee had a sale barn back then, so I spent every waking hour of my life over there loading cattle trucks and writing out slips, and I loved it. I loved it so much that I told my wife when my kids were getting to be school age, I wanted to raise them in Nebraska, just like I raised wide open spaces. So we left Florida and we came back to Nebraska so I could give my kids kind of a sense of a childhood that I had, and so that's what I did. But living down there was great. I love Pawnee City. Of course, it's my hometown. On my hit list, I got a hit list when I go play golf or go do stuff. I have a hit list, and I have my Pawnee City hit list, and that basically is every song that I can remember hearing on those little speakers coming out by the city pool in Pawnee from probably 19. So I'd say that set list is songs I remember anywhere from 1969 to 1978. And so I have about 190 songs, and every time I hear those songs, it takes me back to Pawnee City. So it was just such a great childhood, and I loved it, and I still remain friends with a lot of the folks down there, and that's about it. I love it.
Well, that's awesome. That's very cool. And I've always wanted to ask you this, and I never have, so I'll ask you now. How did you come up with the stage name Larry the Cable Guy?
Well, you know, it's just you work at all different things as a stand-up, and I was just trying to figure out. I loved improv. I loved doing characters. I loved doing stuff like that. So I just started doing some characters, and I did a cable installer on stage for about 5 minutes and got big laughs, and then I started doing it on a radio station in Tampa. It was a real popular morning show in Tampa. And, man, it just started to grow and grow and grow. And I knew I had something when I started Comedy Corner in West Palm Beach, which at the time was Rolling Stone magazine had it as one of the top 5 best comedy clubs in the United States. So I got to meet all kinds of people and work with them and pick their brain and so forth and so on. And so I'll never forget, I did that on stage one night. I've been refining it, you know, because I've been doing it on the radio. And that weekend at the club was David Spade and Raj Schneider.
Okay.
And Rob Schneider. And I got off stage, and both of them came up to me and said, "Dan, that's hilarious, man. That's like a Saturday Night Live running character. You should continue to work on that because that's really funny." So I got the approval from the 2 cast members there, and of course we're still friends to this day after that. But so that's what I did. I just kept working on it and pursued that, and then I just started writing for the character, and the rest is comedy history, I guess, as they say.
Well, that's awesome. Now, you've been a Husker fan your entire life. So how much are you around the program currently now? You said you live in Nebraska. I'm sure you're doing various things here with your career as well. But how much are you around the program? And also, who were some of your favorite Huskers that you watched when you were growing up?
Well, I used to be around a lot more than I am now, you know, with all the stuff going on. I used to do more of it. You know, we'd golf a lot together in the off season and stuff like that. But the last year, I haven't really, you know, done too much with it. I just, you know, I follow it just like everybody else. And people always call me, "Hey, what's the scoop on?" I said, "I don't know. I got no idea. I've been hanging out with my family and kind of doing that kind of thing. You know, my kids are 13 and 14 now. They're not little, so we like to do stuff and go places, and so that's pretty much what I've been doing lately. So, growing up, my favorite guy. Well, you know, growing up, I just always remember certain things in my video bank. You know, when I was a little kid, my first memory of every time I hear a Nebraska Furniture Mart commercial, I always used to remember the lady coming on there and go, Nebraska is number one, and so is the Nebraska Furniture Mart.
Yeah.
You know, so, I mean, for 42 years, the first 42 years of my life, you know, Nebraska was ranked probably in the top 12 and went to a bowl game every year, and we'd win a game. If we lose 2 games, that was a disaster. And if we lost 3 games, as you know, we wanted to fire Coach Osborne.
Yep.
I didn't, but a lot of but you know how that goes. I mean, 3 losses was devastating. So that's how I grew up, and you know, hopefully, I think we're on the right track to bringing it back. So we'll wait and see. But I think Scott will do a great job, and once we get through all these rough spots, he's just had some rough goes of it, you know. Growing up, my favorite players, you know, I always remember the names like Isaiah Moses Hip, you know, here in Lyle Bremser, talk about I am Hip and Jarvis Redwine. I used to love Jarvis Redwine. My favorite, and I don't know why, but my favorite player was always, because I was a Raider fan and I loved Phil Villapiano. And Phil Villapiano was number 41, so I rooted constantly for Phil Ellis because Phil Ellis wore number 41. Yep. And so I always would root for Phil Ellis. But just, man, there were so many of them, you know. That's what I was talking to somebody the other day. You never had a year where you couldn't name the starting linebacker at Nebraska, ever.
Yeah, that's very true.
And now that the offense has changed, and now it's hard to kind of name who's who anymore. But those are the names that always stick out in my mind. You know, I am Hip, Jarvis Redwine, John Dutton. You know, the Brown brothers, and of course later on in life. How do you not like? Jason Peter and Grant Wistrom and that fan, Terrell Farley, one of my all-time favorite players at Nebraska. You can't stop the guy. Of course, Chevin Wiggins, number 33. There's so many names I could bring out, but just I always love the story about Dave Hum. You know, Dave Hum, because I grew up a Raider fan, and you know, Dave Hum went to play for the Raiders, and he never really played any games, but he held the ball on kicks for, a good 17-year career.
Yeah, quite a while.
Yeah, so, but anyway, those are just some of the people in my head that strike a memory.
What are your thoughts on the current state of the Husker football program? And just talking about Scott Frost's offense a little bit. Obviously, it hasn't quite been humming like everyone hoped it would be. So what are your thoughts on the current state of Husker football and Scott Frost's offense maybe not quite getting going like everyone had hoped through the first 3 years?
Yeah, well, you know, if you're going to have an offense like that, you got to have a good offensive line, and I think they're trying to build a good offensive line. I'm not one of those guys that's going to hack him right away. I feel that when he was hired, he fit in the system. You know, he's a Tom Osborne guy. You know, he grew up with the program. He knows what the program's all about. And that's who we need. We don't need somebody coming in that has no clue what the program is about, no clue what our culture is about. And, you know, you have to have big guys. I mean, as you know, Adam, we were getting pushed around, and we're getting pushed around.
Yep.
And you've got to have guys, and as you noticed, he's been recruiting these big, huge offensive linemen. Now, Nebraska never used to have a problem with that. We would always get huge offensive linemen because parents knew that if their kids came to Nebraska, you've got a great shot of going to the NFL because Nebraska pushes linemen into the NFL. And that was a fact. But ever since we changed the way we got rid of all the Osborne guys and we brought in a whole different scheme, and you start losing that. So it's not going to be overnight. People think it's going to be overnight that you're going to bring that back. You're not. You have to get kids in here. And I think they've done a good job of recruiting. I know people were upset because we lost two of our best offensive guys. I get it. I didn't want them to go anywhere either. I don't know the inner workings of how that hashed out, or who they knew, or who they didn't, if they didn't play here or whatever. I do know this. We have had a crazy year, and last year was a crazy year. And it's hard enough to get recruits to come to the University of Nebraska because of where we're at. And when you bring kids to the University of Nebraska, they want to play in front of 85, 90,000 screaming people. That is a great lure to the university. The tradition that we've had is a great lure to the university. And we have a great nightlife for these kids. And when you take that away, when you tell kids from the South, hey, come to Nebraska, and they're just sitting in their dorm rooms doing nothing, and they're not playing in front of everybody, and they're on TV watching these other conferences play their games, I'd leave too. I'd go somewhere else too. That's just me speaking, and that's what I would think if I was a kid. I have never been a fan of going to the Big Ten. Never was I a fan of that, because we had our rivalries. We had some of the oldest rivalries in college football, and we go to a conference that most of the schools aren't even close to us, and now you're losing those recruiting hotbeds of all those kids that grew up with Nebraska in that conference. Well, they're not going to want to go because they'll want to play for around where the parents can, I think it just messed up a lot of things. I think there was a lot of bad decisions made. And, Nebraska, we were doing good. I mean, but that's what happens when you go for the money. You go for the money, and you go, we'll be all right, we'll just go for the money. Just think of all the money we can make. Well, you know what? I'm making a lot of money now. I mean, look what's happened. I mean, I just think that was a bad move. But look, these are all my opinions, and I know people are going to hear this and go, "What else you know about football?" He did. It's my opinion, and people are complete morons because I'm not advocating, and I didn't put money into anything, and I didn't tell coaches to do anything. I'm a fan like everybody else. I think the move to the Big Ten was a bad move, just for the sheer fact of being a fan and loving the rivalries. And I think that has hurt our football team. Sure, we are going to get a lot of money, but I don't know if anybody's noticed lately, but the University of Nebraska, that used to be a powerhouse in almost every sport, is good in volleyball. Yeah. Thank God.
Yeah.
We're starting to come back now in baseball, but I mean, it's like, if you don't think that going to the Big Ten has hurt our recruiting, then I think that's wrong. I think you're going to have to work extra hard now to get kids to come to your school. The volleyball's the way it is because we still have John Cook, who is the Tom Osborne of volleyball coaches. So you're going to have girls from all over the country want to play for John Cook because he is the king of volleyball coaches. So you still have that. But I got to tell you, when you start chasing money, it never turns out, for the most part, to be a good idea. I mean, you're going to have this, and if you want to be a good institution where your athletics are this and this and this and this, you already had that. We had that, and we risked all these things just to get the money. That's my opinion. Obviously, I love the University of Nebraska, and I will do my best to help support these kids with whatever they're doing. I want them to be the best. But you have to have some administration people that also want our kids to be the best. And when they go out on that floor, when they go out on that court, you want to put on that end, and you want to be proud of your kids and go, you know what, we are going to kick somebody's ass today. We don't have that attitude with some people anymore. We used to have that attitude, and I hope we get that attitude back. I think Scott and the football team, I think they can bring that back. The baseball team is starting to crank it out and starting to get some wins. And they're starting to, so, you know, maybe it's coming back after the years that we've been in the Big Ten. But I know I'm ranting here, but
no,
I don't
good.
want people to think that I'm because I'm a supporter. Believe me, I'm a supporter, and I put money behind my support. As far as anything else goes, I can't. You know, I'm not a coach, and I don't make any decisions at the school. I just kick back and I see what happens, and that's my opinion. I think Big Ten was a bad move.
I appreciate your opinion, and everyone's entitled to their opinion. And obviously, you haven't been around it as much lately, but you are around the football program. It's interesting when it comes to joining the Big Ten because you look at the other Power 5 conferences. You know, California, Texas, Florida, that's where everyone wants to recruit, right? Well, the Pac-12 has California. The Big 12 has Texas. The SEC, actually, with A&M and Florida, has both. The ACC has Florida. The Big Ten's a great conference. A lot of respect for it. I believe we can start to have success in it. But when you look at, you know, kind of being landlocked, so to speak, away from some of those recruiting hotbeds, that is true when it comes to the Big Ten Conference. One last question for you.
Absolutely, and the kids that grew up with the Big Ten, they've still got those schools in mind. You know, we're the newcomer to the Big Ten.
Yep.
I mean, thank God that people love Scott. I mean, I was just, I played the golf tournament, the Diamond Resorts down there in Florida. I grew up, for the most part, after the age of 15 in Florida. So I spent, I lived 20 years in Orlando. They love Scott Frost in Florida. They love him. And they love his coaching. And so thank God that, because that gives us an inroad to Florida. Those kids still like him. They still talk about him. So we do have the inroads to Florida because of that. But people just have to kick back and let the guy, give him a chance. Let's see what happens. Let's don't skewer him over one thing. It's always the guy sitting at the couch, watching the game, ridiculing everybody else. These guys aren't in shape. Who's training these guys? Meanwhile, he's sitting on the couch peeing in a flipping iced tea bottle because he's too fat to walk to the toilet. You got all these armchair quarterbacks that think they know better. Let the guy do his thing. Let him start recruiting these kids that are bigger and faster, and they can start pushing people around. And then maybe we'll see the offense take off. But that offense isn't going to take off when you have defensive guys that are on the quarterback in a half a second.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. We got about 1 minute left. Last question for you. All right. What would you consider a successful season? What needs to happen for it to be a successful season for the Huskers this fall?
I sound pissed off this entire conversation.
I don't think it comes across as pissed off, just more or less passion, and it matters to you.
I swear, I love everybody. I just love Nebraska so much, man. And no matter what sport, when we're on the field, man, I get so excited that we're going to kick somebody's hind end. So I'm just passionate about it. So,
absolutely.
A successful season. Well, obviously, I want to go undefeated. Are we ever going to? I don't know. I think a successful season to me would be watching an offensive line push people around. It would be teams that go, Nebraska's not like they were the last couple of years, and we know we are going to be in for a flipping dogfight. When I see defenses getting pushed around, and I see our defense shoving people around and getting to the quarterback, when I see that kind of stuff, then I'm gonna say we're making progress. When the offense has a chance to actually develop a play, then I think we'll see some progress. A successful season to me, Hey, I'd like to see, 8 wins. I think 8 wins is good. Obviously, I think we can do better than that. I have a lot of faith in the coaching staff, and we'll see what happens. We got a lot of guys coming back. They're going to be eager to play football with fans.
Yeah.
And so we'll see what happens. But I'm definitely not putting anybody on any hot seats. I am definitely going to wait and see and let us build a team and continue to build a team that is bigger and stronger, because we have to push people around. And lately we haven't been doing that. I saw signs of it last year in some of those, I'm calling them scrimmage games. But we got some big kids. We're recruiting some big kids. We just, hopefully they'll have that killer mentality, but we'll see then. But I'll be happy with 7 wins. If we're pushing people around and we win 7 games, and these teams know that they've just had their bell rung, I'm happy with that. And then let's work from there, and then let's get back to BA play in Nebraska football.
I like it. Can we get a quick get her done?
Absolutely, Adam. Get her done.
Throw the bones.
Thanks again to our sponsor, Nebraska Spine Hospital. Ladies and gentlemen, when it's your spine, you do not want to mess around, and experience matters. That's why you can trust the experts at Nebraska Spine Hospital, the region's only spine-specific hospital. They are the best at what they do.